It is indeed a good Monday right here from the capital of the country, that is Nairobi, Kenya. And it's a good morning. I say that because we've seen a bit of the sun this morning that is trying to make its way through the heavy clouds this morning. So indeed, it's going to be a good day. And part of our conversation this morning is going to explain why we have seen this change of climate at this particular time when majority of Kenyans will be complaining about a lot of sunshine, but we haven't seen it that much. We'll be talking about why that is, like it is this morning, and also speak about how Kenya is still in a food and a water crisis. As we do know of it, 1.7 million Kenyans annually face hunger and starvation from the effects of climate change. That's a conversation that we're going to look at this morning. Cast our eyes into COP28 projections and deliberations, and actually look at our policy statements in the country and see where we are in terms of financing movements and projects that can push the country close to moving away from this stark number, the 1.7 million Kenyans who face hunger and starvation annually as it is. And speaking of that, in fact, if you do your proper research, then you will know that in the northern part of the country, that conversation is already alive, as majority of Kenyans are now facing that hunger crisis in the country. How can we finance climate conversations? In fact, for today and tomorrow, that's exactly what we're going to talk about, so that we have proper conversations around how the country can move around or in this kind of issues. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiage. We are online and Look Up TV across all your social media platforms. Talk to us. We shall talk right back to you. And for those who are watching and wondering how they can speak to us, our WhatsApp number or line is right there on your screens. And if you want to call us, yes, you can call in and also talk to us this morning. On that note, then, it's important for us to look at exactly how you are waking up this morning, in your dailies. Just like I want to start, let me start on the Daily Nation. Good. Now here we are. The men who control multi-billion state systems. That is the headline right on the Daily Nation. And this is the kicker of this story, that ownership of critical public systems such as e-citizen and electronic platforms for health and procurement, alleged by auditors and members of parliament to be controlled by private entities despite government denials, is increasingly becoming coming under scrutiny, informed by data security concerns and the vast sums of money involved. That story has been covered on page 7. A couple of names that have been mentioned right here on this story. We do have Abdullahi Sheikh, Network Solutions shareholder. There's another one here, Tahun bin Zayed Al Nian, who is one of the owners of a Payroll Limited. James Ayugi, founder of Webmaster Limited as well. So those are the gentlemen who are running critical state infrastructure, and that's what the Daily Nation is talking about this morning. The men who control multi-billion state systems. I want to read that story, and then you jump all the way to page 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. On page 10, on our banks are facing huge losses over fake titles. That story probably covered in page 10. TSC sets new rules for transfer of teachers. Story has been covered on our page 6. And now let's talk about a story here on page 3 on how the new DCI team takes over lawyers' murder probe. That story has been covered on page 3. It's a story that we have been following right here at Look Up TV as well. A story that broke news last week of that lawyer, a city lawyer, was shot dead in his car right here within the city. Well, stories that follow later that might not actually be part and parcel of this particular story is that a lawyer who was laden with a lot of debts, and the allegations or the Now, aspersions that indeed this is what might have led to his death. But then we have to wait and see exactly what that is going to be as the new DCI now team takes over the murder probe. That story has been covered on page 3. Good. Let's talk about sports this morning. World champ Perez Chepchirchir outpaced Ethiopia's Tigist Asafa to win gold for Kenya in a thrilling marathon sprint finish yesterday at the World Athletics Championships in Japan. Yeah. Congratulations to our athletes, but most importantly also Perez Chepchirchir for bringing that medal home. But if you watched it, did you see how Jamaicans are very, very good at 100-meter races? Oof. Yeah. They showed us dust, if that is the language that I can use this morning. But it's a proper picture right there of Chepchirchir outpacing Ethiopia's Tigist. I don't know whether that's the correct pronunciation of that name, Asafa, to win the gold for Kenya. It's a brilliant one. Now, good news for those people who want to join KDF. Currently, there's a recruitment drive of the Kenya Defence Forces. It has announced a recruitment drive scheduled for October 2025. All right, and you want to get the details as well. And those positions as a seeking, then you can go all the way to pages 19 to 23 of the Daily Nation this morning. I've seen they're looking for cadets as well. I didn't know what cadets is, and also looking for just the general police, isn't it? Good. Let's cross over then to the Standard this morning as well. So we see exactly what they have covered today as their biggest story. Just looking for it this morning so we can jump into it. Here it is. It's a story, but it's a story that emanates from that teachers' meeting with the president. And there have been questions about how the president has been handling the housing fund, the affordable housing drive in the country. And this is what the Standard is calling it, the housing bribe. This is launched with a fanfare as a silver bullet to Kenya's housing crisis, despite protest over salary deduction, with no direct benefits. The affordable housing program is fast turning into President William Ruto's political carrot. His latest pledge to hand teachers 20% of the units has raised fresh questions on whether there are any rules on how these houses are allocated. Good. And this is what he promised all those teachers, by the way, who he met at State House last week. And this is quote, today we're going to sign an MOU for teachers to get 20% of the affordable housing units across the country. That is how we change a nation. That is how you change a nation. Good. And this is what he said. You will get 1 million and a 2-bedroom house from affordable housing. All right. Is that okay? In case you move beyond the semis, I'll upgrade the house over to 3 bedrooms. That is on August 28th, and this was the promise, if you do remember, of President William Ruto to the Harambee Stars players who are competing in the CHAN competition. So the question is, it's a scheme for Kenyans, and the Kenyans who are contributing, and those Kenyans who are contributing are hoping that they can get a hand on these houses. Yeah. So the president comes in and says, well, teachers are going to get 20% of the houses. Yeah. And when Harambee Stars players, I'm not saying it's bad, but then this is a national housing scheme that is enshrined within law, isn't it? So why is the president deciding then who gets these houses and who doesn't? What about us, the ones who are contributing to this scheme? So when teachers now, or Harambee Stars players, take the houses that were supposed to take based on merit, who is going to award the rest of the Kenyan citizens who are very good at their job as well? I will propose also the president meets Look Up TV team who have woken up early this morning to come make this show a success, probably give us 5% of those houses as well. That'll be a good one to begin with. Yeah, and those are some of the questions that Kenyans are asking. That hold on, the scheme was a national housing scheme that every other Kenyan is contributing toward. And they're saying, don't make it a reward system. It's interesting times that we live in the country, isn't it? There's a story here on Shah as well. That is staring at a slow death. That is according to the Standard this morning, that as the Director of Criminal Investigations launches a probe into 31 hospitals over fraudulent medical claims, government insiders fear poor implementation is crippling a program once hailed as a lifeline for ordinary Kenyans. That story has been covered on page 2 and 3 of the Standard this morning as well. It's a story that we've kept on talking about from time to time. Over revelations, and actually the Ministry of Health also did admit it. Also the President has admitted to the corruption drive within that particular scheme itself. In fact, even last week, yes, the President was also talking about specific hospitals, all right, that have received more money than even level 5 hospitals in this country, under claims that they have done more surgeries than level 5 hospitals in this country. Creation of fake papers so that you can get these claims from the Shah health scheme in the country. And remember, we're still in the implementation stage of the Shah system, which has been in place, by the way, for over the past 1 year. But if anything is to be said about this scheme, the headlines that we've got from it, the news that are coming from it, essentially show that things might not be running the way they ought to run in this particular scheme. It's up to the President and the government to come in and clamp on the wanton corruption that has been going on in this particular scheme. No wonder the experts were looking at it and saying that 1 year down the line, something that was promising to be the turnaround for the country is staring its death. Not good news at all then for the country as it is. Good. All right. Just before that, we jump into our big conversation this morning. Let me see what Kenyans are talking about online, and we do know what majority of Kenyans are talking about. Let me jump directly into your biggest issues this morning. I can see Amorim trending in the country this morning. If you're a football fan, then you do know why Amorim will be trending this morning. Yeah. So yesterday, again, Man United played Manchester City, the Manchester derby. Yeah. And by the way, if we go historically, Manchester United has won more games in that derby. Manchester City have not been beating Man United in that derby. And this comes at a time when, we're saying that this season, Man United is ready. You bought in Buemo, you bought in Cunha, Yoro now is doing his second season at Man United. Yeah. But then Man United fans, it's good for us to ask you this question so that, they say it's the hope that kills you. So if you look at that team that played yesterday, all right, save for Buemo, save for, even Yoro was in that team last season, so I'm not going to count him. So save for Buemo, probably. Actually, only Buemo and Shesko. Yeah? So it's the same team that was doing nothing the entire of last season. Same team. It's the same team, other than those two players that I've mentioned right there. Yeah? who were not in that team last season. So then how do you expect just things to turn around when you actually said that the players that were playing for Man United were the ones that were popular? So in a funny way again, you presented the same team that you said was problematic last season to this coach, and then you expect to fire him. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't. And for those people who know football for what it is, to say the truth, you're still not playing as a system in that team. Yes, you played a good game against Arsenal, but if you ask me, it was just down to individual brilliance. The likes of Mbeumo, the likes of Bruno Fernandes, the likes of Cunha, who was out injured. The same thing that happened in the Manchester City game. Only Cunha, you looked like he knew what he was doing in that game. The rest of the team was just the one that we're used to last season. So this is what I can tell you. Just decide to break the team completely and then start afresh. And the likes that you're overpaying for players like Shesko. How is Shesko more expensive than Victor Gyökeres? How? Can you explain that? How is he more expensive than Erling Haaland? Some of the things that you can't. How is he more expensive than Ekitike? See, the problems are also within the club. So I'm just going to read a couple of tweets here so that we see what Kenyans are talking about. I can see Isaac who's saying we need Amorim sacked. So that you bring in who? Yeah. So you bring in who? All right. All right. Let me just read one from Misola, who's saying that every football fan is in support of Ruben Amorim. He has to continue his work at Manchester United because he has a family to feed. Yes, you can't make a man lose his job, yeah. Just because you are not happy with him, it doesn't make sense, yeah. Anyway, I also can see Burnley trending as well in the country. It's like this weekend, all you guys are talking about is football as well. And we do know why. Again, if you do remember, Hannibal, former Manchester United player, is the reason as to why Liverpool walked away with 3 points from that game as well. Yeah. And then just to add some salt to the wound this morning, your former striker, that is Højlund, scored a fantastic goal in Napoli this weekend on his debut. And chances are that he might actually score more goals this season. Oof. It is what it is. Just one final one, then from Mzee Mzima, who's saying Luke Shaw is not a centre-back, Bruno is not a defending midfielder, Amad Diallo is not a right winger, Casemiro is better than Ugarte, Mazraoui is better than Dogu on both wings. You sign a keeper, to stay on the bench. Ruben Amorim's system is an embarrassment to Manchester United. And they're actually talking about this in the Burnley trend this morning. I'm so sorry. It looks as if majority of what Kenyans are talking about this morning is on the happenings this weekend. But I can see one here from President Ruto. I can see one, Isaac, who's saying the president should not use the housing program as a political campaign tool. It's not even working to begin with. Even that promise is not working. This is in response to the president promising 20% of the housing program houses to the teachers who visited him at State House this weekend. Good. I can see another one here, also touching on President William Ruto. Simon was saying, look, Kenya is a secular state. It is not attached to a religion. It is not attached to a way of life. Every other Kenyan has a way to live. The president should not, and then he says, I repeat, should not build a church at State House. That is what Simon is saying this morning. If you do remember, by the way, the president also this weekend said he's going to find a way to build a bigger and better church at State House for all those guys who find themselves within State House to have a place that they can worship. What are your thoughts and sentiments on this as well? I would leave that to you. You can talk to us at Lookup TV across all your social media platforms. And by the way, just to step out of our trends this morning, I can see KDF is trending this morning, and we do know why. They are looking for positions. So for those people who want to apply to join the Kenya Defence Forces in the country, it is your time as well. So rush right now to that website, all right? Apply, make sure that you meet the requisite requirements so that when they come to interview you in October, you are ready to take up those positions. Pretty much. No, I'm not going to talk about Arsenal this morning. You know, the thing about talking about Arsenal this morning is, I mean, what is there to talk about? Nothing. I mean, we are a team that is doing its business the way that we're supposed to do our business. So it gets a bit boring when we start telling, oh, Yokore scored again. What did you expect? You know? For us now, we're looking into bigger things. Let's talk tomorrow when we play the Champions League. Yeah? Games for big boys, isn't it? All right. Guess what? Our conversation this morning is going to touch on climate change and how Kenya is still stuck in the danger of losing its citizenry to water and food insecurity. How can we start charting proper ways and to move away from this? We talk about that this morning on a deeper level. What numbers are we talking about? 1.7 million Kenyans. We're going to go look back and see whether we have policy statements that fund climate movements within the country. Also look at COP28 and see whether indeed it's important for us to talk about it and what has it done currently as it is in the country. And if you remember, the president actually attended the CS2, if I'm not wrong, in Addis. You remember that famous 12 million bob for our right to Addis. Also talk about that this morning and see if indeed these conversations are translating to what is going on the ground right here in the country. Can be a part and parcel of that online at Lookup TV across all your social media platforms. We take a tiny breather. Once we come back, we jump right into that conversation. Good morning.
Taarifa zinapochipuka na kutufikia papa hapa kwenye makao makuu ya chumba cha habari cha runinga ya Lookup, kwenye taifa, kwenye serikali, kwenye bunge, tunajitosa hadi kwenye sauti ya wenyeji ili kupata tu maoni ya wenyeji kuhusu masuala haya yanayochipuka.
Maana hii kitu inaenda kuumiza Mkenya kwa tax.
Hakuna kitu tunafurahia. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Sisi tunaumia, si ati tunaumia ile ya kiukweli. Juu maisha ni ngumu.
Na bila shaka tunapata maoni yao ili sauti yao ipate kusikika. Na watasema hili, waseme lile, watasema hiki na waseme kile, almuradi sauti yao ipate taa.
Mambo ya mafuta tena imekuwa ni changamoto zaidi kwa kila mtu wa bodaboda.
Uchumi ikikuwa stable, tunaamini mambo itakuwa sawa sawa.
Kwanza alikuwa na ria wasa wa boda, mama mboga nini. Hawa sasa ndio wamefinywa zaidi mazuri.
Mpenzi mtazamaji, hii ni bunge la wenyeji.
I recall the doctor telling me that day, he said, Sarah, I'm sorry about what happened to you, but you see, life happens. You would have to learn to work with your hands, depend on your hands more.
And today, if you're going through anything that you do not understand, just call on this name, Jesus, and he will save you.
I realized I loved music when I was about 7 or 8. I used to puff my cheeks and play the 12-bar blues. Like I'd walk around the house doing like...
Why do we need the Holy Spirit?
I mean, if you look at what Jesus said when he was leaving, he said he is going and that he will send the Holy Spirit as our helper.
So God knows everything since the end, from the beginning, has a plan for your life. So to find that plan for your life, you must find God. When you find God, you will know the path for your life.
Do you need a dose of hope? If so, you are in the right place. We think of ourselves around here as hope dealers, delivering truth, power, and inspiration to hearts and minds all over the world. If nothing else has worked for you, why not give the God thing a try? For it's in the presence of God that you'll find everything that you need. Amen.
Save a Life is a non-profit organization that has taken the front line in transforming lives in the entire country. So far, we have transformed the life of over 100,000 people through our programs, which include medical support, youth empowerment, street family program, feeding program, and climate change. Join us today as we transform lives. As we always say, service to humanity is service to God. Save a life, transforming lives.
Pindi tu taarifa zinapochipuka na kutufikia papa hapa kwenye makao makuu ya chumba cha habari cha runinga ya Lookup, kwenye taifa, kwenye serikali, kwenye bunge, tunajitosa hadi kwenye sauti ya wenyeji ili kupata tu maoni ya wenyeji kuhusu masuala haya yanayochipuka.
Maana hii kitu inaenda kuumiza Mkenya kwa tax.
Hakuna kitu tunafurahia. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Sisi tunaumia, si ati tunaumia ile ya kiukweli. Juu maisha ni ngumu.
Na bila shaka tunapata maoni yao ili sauti yao ipate kusikika. Na watasema hili, waseme lile, watasema hiki na waseme kile, almuradi sauti yao ipate taa.
Mambo ya mafuta tena imekuwa ni changamoto zaidi kwa kila mtu wa bodaboda.
Uchumi ikikuwa stable, tunaamini mambo itakuwa sawa sawa.
Kwanza alikuwa na ria wa boda, mama mboga nini. Hao sasa ndio wamefinywa zaidi mazuri.
Mpenzi mtazamaji, hii ni bunge la wenyeji.
All right. Welcome back to the Morning Drift. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiage. Let's talk about something that you might be aware of or not. And I will introduce it like this then. Kenya is facing one of its most severe climate challenges in recent history. And by the way, when we introduce it like that, you can go back 5 years ago and my introduction might be found somewhere as well. Now, according to the National Drought Management Authority, at least 1.7 million Kenyans are already in urgent need of food assistance, with numbers expected to rise if the short rains fail this year. Now, in the arid and semi-arid lands, pasture and water sources are shrinking, leading to widespread livestock deaths and pushing families into deeper poverty. UNICEF and WFP warn that child malnutrition is climbing sharply in drought-affected counties, with over 500,000 children at risk of acute malnutrition. At the same time, now Kenya's strategic grain reserves remain below recommended levels, leaving the country vulnerable to supply shocks. Now, despite global pledges at COP28 to double adaptation, finance and operationalize loss and damage funding, local financing for drought resilience and water security is still far short of what is needed to mitigate this in the country. Now, the question is no longer whether climate change is a threat, but how Kenya can adapt fast enough to protect its people, its food systems, and its future. Now, to help us go through this important conversation this morning, we do have one Dennis Sambi, who is a climate change expert. Dennis, how are you doing, sir?
Elijah.
Good morning.
Do you know I'm also called Simba?
Yes, I was told. In fact, in my phone, you're called Simba.
Yeah.
We'll talk after this so that I know who stole each other's name. Yeah. Important. Yeah. Dennis, let me begin like this. I said this introduction. I mean, every other time when we get to this particular period this year, you can go back 10 years ago, you can go back 5 years ago, and this headline that we're talking about this morning, it's not new. In fact, this 1.7 million people, only the number will vary. You could hear maybe 3 million Kenyans, 2 million Kenyans, 1.7 million, but just right there about, an average of about 2 million Kenyans are always facing hunger and starvation at about this time of the year, and that has been historical in this country. Why are things not changing? Where's the failure point?
In fact, thank you for having me this morning, Elijah. To start us off, you see, the Met Department actually released forecasts. I think, was it yesterday or the other day?
Yes.
And the predictions are that we are going to have severe droughts, especially in the east and southeast region of the country. And I think that will add to the numbers, because I know the numbers that you've mentioned, they are historical.
Yeah.
And yes, we are going to experience, we are going to receive short rains from between October and December. But in our dry regions, which is nearly 80% of the country, we are going to experience severe droughts. And that speaks back to climate change. The climate is continuously changing.
Yes.
And you've mentioned that at COP28, there was a pledge to operationalize the loss and damage fund. I know there is a pilot, I think, project that was started a year or so ago in Garissa County on how to operationalize. Actually, it is in effect, but is not already operationalized. But now back to the situation of drought in the country. As you've said, going back not even to 5 years, going back to our history, we have been experiencing droughts year in, year out. And the situation is worsening year after year, because climate change is happening every day, even as we speak now. And the historical patterns on how we've been receiving rainfalls are continuously changing.
Yes.
The rains that we used to receive that were average, now we're going to receive above average rainfall, especially in regions like Western. And you find that the excess rain is also a threat even to food security, a threat to the environment, because if you have excess flooding, then people down in Budalangi, down in Nyanza, where we have the mouth of the rivers that we have in the country, are going now to bear the brunt of weather. So in as much as we can focus on the drought situation in our eastern part and northern part and southeast of the country, we also have a severe problem of flooding and excess rains, especially in our traditionally rain-fed areas in the country.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Dennis, let's start tackling this particular topic from this area. This number is well known. We do know that once we get into a severe drought period, then we do expect about 1.7 million people to 3 million people to be acutely affected by this particular scenario. Then you wonder, is it that our early warning systems are not effective? Then why does this number not translate to the country getting ready to tackle this particular challenge?
A good question there. Actually, our early warning system is perfect because we don't live in isolation. We live in a global infrastructure where early warning systems can be cascaded down to local level.
Yes.
We actually, if you check your phone now, by just naturally, you'll see it is giving you forecast like during the day what you should wear. Tomorrow probably it will be cloudy, it will be rainy. That's an early warning system. And we are borrowing that from the global early warning system. Now, our local or national system is just nested on the global one. So it's perfectly well. The problem is being prepared as a country to tackle the impacts of the drought.
Yes.
That is the conversation should be around how should we as a country be prepared early enough through when we receive the early warning that now we have the early warning, the Met released the forecasts. We're going to experience severe droughts and excess above average rainfall. So how we as a country are going to be prepared through the national and county systems and processes to ensure that the impacts that come with those weather variability are well accommodated and absorbed by our governance infrastructure.
Yes.
The conversation should be around there, not actually if we have an accurate early warning system. We have.
Yes.
Everybody in Kenya, so long as you have a smartphone, if you don't have, you switch to look up TV now, you can easily get the forecast of what is going to happen in the next week. Next month you're going to receive rainfall. If you live in the semi-arid or arid areas, you know you're going to experience severe drought. You as a farmer down there, how are you going to partner with the county governments and the national government to ensure that when the impacts now hit the ground running, you are well ahead in accommodating such outcomes?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That said, we've always seen that national drought response system essentially comes from the national government. But then Dennis, we are now in a devolved governance system. You would like to think that this responsibility, if left to the county governments, it will be easier in terms of the quickness of response, the effectiveness of the response. Do you think that when the rain starts beating us, is that our national drought response services have been left to the national government, who have to wait up until when it gets really bad? That's when they start coming in.
Our county governments, we can say they are still young and growing in terms of, let me say, managing the drought, because droughts do not only affect a certain county.
Yes.
Actually, they affect around 23 counties in the country. So it is a cross-county effect, and that is why it is a national, a national actually agenda that the national government has to tackle this. But most essential is we must have a way in which the county governments and the national government, especially from the affected counties, must, and this must is in capital letters, must find a formula of working together,
yes,
using the early warning system to ensure that they are prepared well in advance. Like now we are talking about the upcoming drought. We were expecting short rains, but they are not going to be there. We are going to experience drought. We have that information now. The county governments that are going to experience these impacts already have the information.
Yes.
And I believe in their budgets, because they naturally come from an area where it's this drought all around the year, in their budgets they have a budget put aside specifically to respond to the emergencies that come with the drought. But for us to be able to effectively respond to the emergencies, there must be a high level of preparedness, and this calls for coordination between the national government and the county governments. That is the only way we can say that we are prepared to deal with the emergencies. The 1.7 million people that we are looking forward that they will be affected by this drought, they're already known, because through the National Drought Management Authority, already these people have been mapped out in these counties. They are known where they live, the kind of effects, the kind of emergency kits that they require. So it's all about how do we implement this in a way that the impacts that people will encounter will be reduced, or the severity will be low, because we know which kind of impacts are going to be there. There is going to be malnutrition, and those who are going to suffer most, especially, will be the children.
Yes.
So in our emergency response packaging and kits, do we have specific maybe meals or a package that ensures that the malnutrition is tackled even through the emergency response system, through the food systems within those specific counties?
That's it.
Yeah.
It's a good thing that you should be speaking about malnutrition, because that's exactly what I wanted to go to. This is what the UN is saying, that in every drought cycle in this country, and this is what they're saying, that as of this month, you're going to start seeing a lot of children affected in the areas where this drought is going to hit the most. How can we start talking about removing the effect of malnutrition of the children in these areas? Can we ever get ready? What we're saying, in our response, yes, they've been affected, but then the kids in this area, or the children in this area, have been spared of malnutrition. What needs to happen?
Good question there. And I'll start off by, first of all, let us focus on what malnutrition is. I remember when we were young, there was a very severe drought that came across the country, even areas that were receiving, I think it was in the 90s.
Yes.
And I think that was the first time I encountered something like malnutrition, because you would see your friend, you're still kids, but you'll see your friend actually severely malnourished. Actually, you find that children need good food to grow both physically and mentally, and that is why it is critical for children to be cushioned or buffered against any instances of malnutrition. Adults, actually, you've already developed, you're mentally and physically grown. There isn't much that depends on food apart from the energy that you need to carry out through the day. But for a child, they need that to grow mentally and physically.
That's it.
So when they are denied that opportunity to have nutritious food, food that can enable them grow both psychologically, mentally, and physically, it becomes a big problem even for the country, because we shall be growing kids that mentally they are not okay, physically they will not be okay, and that also brings a huge burden on the health sector of the country. You're growing a sick population. At some point, you find hospitals filled with people who are malnourished, and that takes a toll on the national budget on health. And actually, I think it's Article 43 under the Bills of Rights. It actually mandates the national government, and by delegation, I think, to county governments, to ensure that every citizen in this country has access to adequate and nutritious food. It's actually the responsibility of the government, of the day, to ensure that you eat every day. It is your constitutional right. So you're not supposed to go hungry. And that is why it is a serious discussion and conversation that we as a country must have, especially when we already know that this situation is going to get us at some point. So how do we ensure that we are adequately prepared to absorb those effects? It is a right of that kid in Isiolo, in Garissa, in Marsabit. It is their right to eat from the government, because it collects taxes from everybody.
Yes.
And those who are vulnerable, they must receive that token through a constitutional provision.
That's it.
So this is a conversation that most people don't have, or we just ignore, because historically we face droughts and we come out of it shoulders high and we move on. But it's a discussion that we as a country must have, that we must caution the less privileged, those who are vulnerable, those who live in Kenya but they live in areas that experience severe droughts and they are unable to get actually even a day's meal. So they must be cushioned, and the cushioning starts with ensuring that the food systems are strengthened from the production to the consumption phase and even post-consumption. It has to be strengthened from time to time. You mentioned in your introduction about our national reserves. Why is it below the recommended levels all the time? Any moment we get to drought, now we are having drought. Recently, I think 2-3 years ago, the World Food Program gave us around 200,000 bags of maize.
Yes.
And even the NCP, think B,
yes.
Does not inform Kenyans adequately on how many metric tons of maize do we have in our reserve, or wheat, or finding that information is very difficult. When you go to, so there has to be some clarity and transparency around all that for planning purposes, so that whenever we are facing such a situation of drought, we are having 1.7 is not just a number, million. These are people that we shall soon start seeing them being flashed on the TV screens, malnourished. Some are unable even to walk, yet they are Kenyans who deserve to get their services from the government of the day.
Pretty much. Yeah. And I know we're going to talk about why it is taking Kenya long to start turning around these regions that are heavily affected by droughts. Why historically every other leadership that has come in has promised that, well, these ASAL areas in this country, we have to start having different conversations around them. We're going to come back to that conversation. But in terms of us responding, these emergency food responses, how can you balance that response with also protecting the livelihoods of the local farmers in these regions that you're doing these emergency food responses towards?
I tend to believe that your question means when the emergency response comes in,
yes.
It can put off balance the local farmers who already have the produce.
That's it.
But any moment actually we get to an emergency situation, the interest of the public comes first, not the interest of individual entrepreneurs.
An example is this, and I'll give you that specific example that I ran into. We do know that in the northern part of the country, you're going to find a lot of farmers who are pastoralists. So here you are supplying food to this region, but the majority of these farmers, their livelihood is around pastoralism. Aren't you then affecting the ability of these farmers to have an income in an area that you're supplying this food toward? Yes.
You see, if you are a pastoralist, that means your heavy investment is in pastoralism.
That's it.
And you see, even just within the country itself, you find that most of the meat or the beef that people consume in this country, it comes from the pastoral regions, the ASAL regions. And most of the maize and green produce that people consume across the country, it comes from where agriculture is heavy. So there's that natural balance in the country for us, that we don't raise livestock, we don't keep it.
Yes.
But we can eat meat. And for the people that raise livestock, we don't grow green grams, we don't grow sukuma wiki, but we can consume it because we have livestock. So there is just natural balance of exchange in the country. So I don't think that that is our concern. The main concern should be maybe whenever there is an emergency. For example, we need to stock up our national reserves. The conversation should be how will local farmers, especially those who grow maize, be cushioned from the imports that come in and maybe flatten or lower the price of maize? That is a conversation of economics. But it is important also to cushion the farmers, because the cost of production in Kenya for a farmer, it has to be reflected also in the final price that they say they sell their maize. So whenever we as a country decide that we are going to, I know there's a lot of discussion around maize scandals and everything, and that is where money is. Do we have enough maize? If you go today to to the National Cereals and Produce Board, they will tell you we don't have enough maize. But if you go to specific farmers, myself, I come from Trans Nzoia, farmers, individual farmers, some already still have stocked up maize from the previous season.
Yes.
So we as a country, we must agree that it is not a must to bring in imports. We can live off what we have. Why would farmers be saying they have maize and the country, the national body says we don't have enough? Why are you forcing an avenue, a loophole, so that something can be imported? That is now business onto someone. But are we doing that at the expense of the local farmers? Because when maize floods the market,
yes,
the price will go down. And once the price goes down, the farmers will not be able to recoup back the cost of what they used to produce. Producing maize in Kenya is averagely per kg of maize is somehow higher compared to other regions, and that's why we always fall into that trap of importing maize from other countries like Brazil and the other, like those who have heavily invested into mechanization and some sort of that extensive agriculture. So we must have a conversation of we can only import if we don't have, but if farmers have, let that maize be bought. And also for farmers, I've had that conversation before with some farmers. They must be able to let their maize out. Some farmers only keep their maize for price speculation. They want to get the highest price for their produce.
Yes.
But sometimes that doesn't happen. So you need to be very, very careful as a farmer. If the period to sell has come, sell your maize so that it can benefit. The reason why you planted the maize is to sell it. Sell it at the right time so that it can benefit all Kenyans. And also the national body must be transparent enough to ensure that we only import if we really need it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Dennis, let's jump into conversations around COP28. I mean, every time we get into the COP periods, I'm usually excited. I want to see exactly what, especially third world countries, are going to speak about. And I was very, very interested in one area, on the climate financing area. If you look at COP28, it was supposed to be, I mean, COP27 was touted as one that would give us ways to tackle climate change. They came up with so many policies. Now, COP28 was sort of seen as one to show us what advances we've made. And I know majority of them didn't even make it to COP28. But under COP28, climate financing, do you think that Kenya needs to rely on some of these COP28 policies and are getting financing into the country, especially on climate action? Or the country as it is right now has capacity by itself to start charting its own way in terms of tackling some of these climate issues in the country, Dennis? Where are we as a country? And I'm sorry to cut you short, also speak about that, knowing very well that every other leader, every other president who has ever come in has this wonderful master plan. And by the way, if you look at Vision 2030, it is well right within it. Maybe I should remind Kenyans that, well, Vision 2030 is just 4 years away.
Very sure. Thank you for that question. I was actually excited when you mentioned COP28.
Yes.
Yeah, we as a country, as far as climate financing is concerned, we have to do both things. Rely on international convergence and coordination, and
Yes.
also as a country be able to absorb some of the effects ourselves. And that is why when I think national NDC 2, that is nationally determined contributions that are normally submitted by countries, you find within that, I think it was submitted in 2023, and the third one had been submitted just recently in May.
Yes.
We as a country agree that 13% of all the cost absorption for the implementation of our the national climate change action plan, we shall absorb 13%. Then 87% has to come from the international bodies. One thing that I would want Kenyans who are watching us to know is that we as a country, we suffer disproportionately from the climate vagaries, the effects of climate change, yet we did not contribute to that. Normally, when we were in class, when we used to be in class in our masters and we were arguing about this, I used to be so tough. Find that countries in Europe and in the States, during the 1920s, during it's called the Industrial Revolution years, these guys went heavy into using coal and other fossil fuels to ensure that their economies are what they are. Most people, even our leaders here, they go to benchmark in the developed countries. You find that these countries put into place systems. In fact, the impacts of climate change today in those countries, it's almost into 80–90% absorbed already, because they have physical infrastructure, they have capacity, they have well-trained personnel that foretells and can jump into action whenever there is an emergency.
Yes.
Come back to our country here, and majority of the sub-Saharan countries, you find that we are suffering disproportionately from the global effect that we did not contribute to.
Yes.
Our country we still want to progress. We still want to create jobs through industries, through manufacturing. But that will only happen if and only if we can go heavy also into production.
Yes.
But now we are being told, okay, fine, you cannot, don't do that production, you have to do it clean. Use solar energy, use wind energy, we are going to help you do it.
Yes.
Do that. And now that is where the international support comes in. Like, you are going to help us do this. Can you do it rightly without so many conditions? You are living a good life. We are suffering today. We are sub-Saharan. We want to develop, but it is very difficult because you already developed. You used most of the fossil fuels. They are up in the air. They are causing global warming. We are not allowed to do that. We need to do it clean. And doing it clean is not cheap. It's somehow expensive.
Yeah.
You come to Kenya here, we have fewer people who are experts when it comes to advising even the government or on their own volition, doing the right things when it comes to the effects of climate change. If you go to a country like Norway, you'll find a member of parliament they just ride a bicycle.
Yes, yes.
To parliament.
It's the way of life.
It's the way of life.
Yes.
But in Kenya, with the poor roads and everything, where everyone lives everywhere, it's not easy for us to live that life. And that's why now that international support has to come in, ensure that, yes, you want us to develop clean, but you guys didn't develop clean. This is a new concept you are trying to say. You are living clean because you already have the physical and the human advantage, capital advantage. But for us, we need all that, recouping that to ensure that we can develop clean. And now back to the question about climate financing. Climate financing is an important architecture for ensuring that we as a country can absorb the effects of climate change. But traditionally or historically, since it has been introduced in the recent years, there's a robust process, namely the MRV, the measuring, reporting and verification process.
Yes, yes.
You must be able to measure. If you are saying you are developing clean, how much carbon are you saving from going into the air?
That's it.
If we as a country can invest heavily on MRV, measuring, reporting and verification, because independent verifiers from all these international bodies come to verify that you are doing what you are saying. It is not something, yes, I have planted 15 billion trees, give me money. It doesn't come like that. It comes through a very robust, thorough verification process. So we as a country have to invest up to the personal level, individual level of farmers. For them even to earn the carbon credit, people must know that what I'm doing,
yes,
has to be verified.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And Dennis, I want you to hold your thought right there, because you introduce an area that has been quite controversial, especially on carbon credit financing as well. It's a new term that has come in, especially that has emanated from COP, all the way from COP26 up to where we are right now in a COP28. That even the way that these finances are channeled to these countries, that there isn't a proper visibility model that says now country A, country B qualifies for this amount of money because they've been able to achieve this. I'll come to that, but then also it's like you're painting the picture of we are very far away from developing, but then it looks like our development is heavily anchored on the support of the developed nations, some of them, including the USA, who don't even give a damn about COP28. In fact, they pulled out from some of these climate financing deals that we're talking about here. So are we doomed, or is there a way then for this country to say we can make progress by ourselves in particular areas? Which areas are those? Once we come back right here on the Morning Drift, we are still with Dennis, talking about where we are. You gotta know this. As we speak, as of this month, 1.7 million Kenyans are actually facing starvation and malnutrition because they do not have water and food. Can we change this conversation? Are some of these policies, like what we came up with COP28, cannot help the nation start moving forward in some of these conversations? Or are we stuck in an area where we again have to heavily depend on some of these developed nations? And I'll be telling you how we got there once we come back right here from this break. Talk to us at Look Up TV across all your social media platforms. I am Akia Kesimba once we come back.
People are there to belittle you. When people are questioning you,
if you don't move fast, of course, yes, you lose it, but then it's not us to push you.
But you do not know the God who has been molding me. What has he been doing to me?
The deep and mature conversations of empowerment for you with a curious mind and an appetite for oriented conversations.
I concur with what you're saying. You plan your finances, you can easily live without a debt.
An engaging safe space of free expression and truthfulness with an upheld vibrance, motivation and happiness.
So many children who are there, they are not living their dreams.
Join us for deep conversations with Zipporah Gashushe every Saturday from 8 p.m. The Deeper Conversations on Look Up TV.
For you to forgive someone who has hurt you? How easy is it? What are some tips, a person can apply to improve their public speaking skills?
We all have personality lazy somewhere around us.
In my mind, whenever I'm invited for a public speaking event, I don't like to put a lot of, accessories or too many color.
What are the major things to look out when choosing a school for a child?
Another cheesy conversation starter is, men do this a lot. They look familiar. Have we met before? No. We met in Village.
Nobody's buying that line again.
No, we don't. We don't buy it anymore.
Do you need a dose of hope? If so, you are in the right place. We think of ourselves around here as hope dealers, delivering truth, power, and inspiration to hearts and minds all over the world. If nothing else has worked for you, why not give the God thing a try? For it's in the presence of God that you'll find everything that you need. Amen.
Welcome back. You are still watching The Morning Drift. My name is Simba Elijah Charles. Can I get proper conversations this morning here with Dennis Sambi, who is talking about how this climate financing, that African countries need to wake up to the reality of what it really means. And it looks as if the majority of African nations, Kenya included this morning, have not realized just what it means. So, Dennis, my next question is just going to be how Kenya should make sure that this climate financing deals that the country qualifies for essentially go all the way to the areas that are worst hit by the drought. Even before we get there, are you convinced that indeed African nations, and especially Kenya, has understood the criteria in which it takes to qualify for this climate financing, one? And number two, the other question would be, look at what we're talking about here this morning, Dennis. You see, the question is that how we should make sure that these funds reach counties and communities hardest hit by drought, which forms another question. Are we solving the climate change issue, or we are just responding to the emergencies of climate change in these areas?
Exactly. You've asked two questions. Let me begin with the first one.
Yes.
About ensuring that the climate finances, first of all, if the African countries do understand. Yes, they do. And information is power. There is someone who said that hide some stuff in the books and some people will never know.
That's it.
They know. Those who know.
Yes.
That there is a very robust process of verifying and reporting on carbon capture. If you have a project, for example, you're growing trees, you'll be growing trees for the benefit, for your benefit. Maybe you want to harvest timber at some point, but before you harvest that timber, you have helped absorb CO2 from some company in Europe that you didn't produce yourself. And that's where the climate now financing and carbon credits come in. Like I'm growing, yes, it's for my benefit, but I'm helping absorb some CO2 that I didn't produce, I didn't emit, but I'm absorbing it. So the person who emitted should be able to compensate me for being a good person doing a project that is absorbing their CO2. So it is just like carbon credits and climate financing, they oscillate about, it's a market where someone is emitting and you are absorbing and they are paying you for absorbing. That is as simple as it is.
Yes.
No matter how the terms change around it, it is just someone is emitting, they have been allowed to emit more than you do, and you are doing a project that is able to absorb what they have emitted from the atmosphere, because we share the atmosphere as the world. There's no atmosphere for Europe. When gases go up, they just oscillate around the world and they affect everyone in an equal way. So when you come up with a project that is able to take away from the atmosphere the CO2, or a project that would rather not emit, you are benefiting everyone. But those who are emitting, they're just benefiting themselves. That's why we have to create a market between us and them, so that they're able to compensate for the CO2. If the Kenyan population, especially those who are in the rural areas, can understand and know how to tap into this market, it is a viable market from climate financing. We have some few, I think, groups in the coast. Even there is one in the it's called Northern Range Land Trust, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. They're in the north, remember, but they're doing projects that emit less and absorb more CO2, and they get the credits. And once you get the credits, you are able to sell it, and you get the money that comes into the community. We already have communities that are doing that in the coast, and I know that in the northern area. This one can be taken to every region in this country, and what is needed is information around the carbon credit. It's not a very difficult thing. Just you're going to market I'm selling space to absorb CO2. Who is emitting out there? I'm here. But now, what is the most important is the verification process. Are you really saying you have that space that you are saying you have? Have you created something additional to the net effect of absorbing the CO2?
Yes.
So that information needs to get to the people, especially the farmers in most of our rural areas. They can really benefit from this, because I know, Elijah, you come from some rural setting. In your rural setting, Naita or Shago, you have plenty of trees. The environment is basically natural.
Yes.
But do you know those trees are absorbing CO2 from Europe that you never knew, that you never emitted in the first place, and you are supposed to be paid for that? So it is about, are we creating an additional effect of taking CO2 away from the atmosphere? That is the effect that Kenyans should know, especially farmers. And once they know, they are able to benefit from such projects.
That's it.
The other question you asked about
whether we're indeed, what are we doing with this money? Here we are talking about how this money is supposed to go to the counties that are most deserving or hit by climate change. Should we use this money to solve the issue in the first place?
Yeah, that is one of the ways that the monies we get from climate financing should go to such areas that are hard hit by the climate variabilities. And one thing that I have failed to mention in my previous comment is the way the climate financing works. Actually, it is the government that manages it. It is not managed privately. It is the government that oversees it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that is why it is the government that negotiates when you go to the COPs. It is the government that negotiates. Yes, of course, flanked by CSO, civil society organization, some entrepreneurs, but it is the government that is believed to be the principal leader when it comes to issues of climate financing. And it is now the responsibility of the government, of our government. And I commended them when they said, okay, fine, we are going to do 13%, because the first nationally determined contribution report that we submitted to the COP, I think it was COP 27, I think, or 26, yeah.
Yes.
100% of climate financing was dependent on international support. But now the second one, it brought in 13% local cost absorption.
That's it.
Now we should broaden that into even way more, because the time lag of getting that financial support is very long because of very long verification process. And you see, for us, most of our carbon projects are natural projects. It's not like a technology one. Just we develop today a technology and it captures carbon away from the atmosphere. No, it's a natural biological process of planting vegetations, trees, and it takes time to verify that indeed they are doing what we are saying they do for us to be able to get the credits. So it is the government to know and allocate within the present budgets. I checked up the National Drought Management Authority the other day, and actually they are acutely underfunded.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot underfund such an authority and expect emergency response in terms of drought to be effective. You'll still be ending up in similar problems year in, year out.
That's it.
And you see, as a drought authority, together with the AFA, that is Agriculture and Food Authority, they are supposed to ensure that through their working, they come up with the reports that help the communities and the government, so to speak, to cushion such communities from future vagaries. How do they do that? Through their working, they interact and come up with research and innovations to ensure that, for example, in the northern parts where we have severe droughts, communities there engage in agricultural activities that are climate smart. One of them being growing drought-resistant, pest-resistant crops, like now the sorghum.
That's it.
It has been happening, but it needs to always be taken to another level all the time. developed countries have been able. Like if you go to Israel today, Israel sits in a desert somewhere, but they produce most of the greens that we see around the world. Global supermarkets, you go to Europe, you find Israeli products. Yet they come from a desert. What are they doing differently in that desert? Yet our country is only 80%, 20%. We only depend on 20%. Just imagine if we can just use an extra 10% from the desert areas. We shall be food secure.
Will be massive, will be food secure.
Exactly. So we need to go heavy on innovations, technologies like I think hydroponics.
Yes.
It's called vertical agriculture, where you grow soilless agriculture. You do soilless. There's no soil. There's just some very efficient solutions, and already it is being practiced in some areas in Kenya. We need to go heavy on technology. We need to empower farmers in those regions, even to rear cattle or livestock that can withstand the shocks of climate change that we're already experiencing.
Yes.
And that way, we shall cushion the entire country from, because when one region of this country is affected, the entire region is affected.
That gets affected. Yeah. It's a good thing that you're speaking about that. No, I was waiting to clear this interview so I could ask you this question, but I think whatever you're mentioning there is quite an important one. I should ask you just right now. I got one question from one Farida. I just saw your post and said, can you kindly ask him about this question? This is what Farida is asking, that I've always been baffled about what is going on in the northern part of the country. And then she says this: we have Lake Turkana, that is a year-round freshwater lake in this country. In fact, she says, I have visited that lake. The beaches are beautiful. Then she goes on to say, so you want to tell me that this country, since independence, has not found a way to make the northern part of the country agriculturally productive when we have a freshwater lake lying unutilized in that area. Then she goes on to say, in fact, I see people fishing in that lake. Then goes on, can you ask Dennis to talk about that this morning?
Very good question.
Yes.
Within our area of profession, we really discuss a lot around it.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to what I had just mentioned about going heavy on technological innovations that will turn our semi-arid and arid regions into agricultural or arable land. It's possible to do that because we have very good aquifers, water aquifers in our northern areas. We can do heavy irrigation, we can grow, and there are specific crops or plants that such an environment favors. So what we just need, the way Farida has mentioned there,
yes,
is just for the government to be serious.
So you're sensing political goodwill is not there just to make this happen?
There was some political goodwill when we smelled some oil in Talo.
It was a fast movement. We started mining. In fact, it's a good thing you should talk about. You know, we exported some oil.
Why don't we go heavy on agriculture? Because our country, I think around 80% of the population depends on agriculture as the main income generation activity. We can be able to push that even further. The pastoralists, if pastoralists can combine pastoralism and agriculture by turning their land very, very fertile into arable land, Kenya will be food independent. We shall be able to export a lot of food from this country because we are an agricultural nation. We shall be able to export a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables, a lot of grains to other countries, including the neighboring countries. Countries like Ukraine, they are at war, yet we are buying grains from them. They are at war. And already the areas that are agriculture heavy, such as Trans Nzoia or Singishu, some of the lands are already fragmented. The only virgin lands that we can go heavy on mechanization are actually up in the north.
That's it.
We can turn Kapedo into some very good agricultural farm.
That's it. We
are talking about, is it UAE? I'm not sure if it's UAE or it is the other country, where the crown prince, has decided that he's going to build a very big city in some desert, and it's going to be green all over.
A glass city.
Exactly, a glass city, exactly. Yes. Why don't we do that in our country? We have enough land that we can turn into, we can make it arable land and grow food, be able to employ, not just kufinya computer. We have so many youths that we can use their technological imagination and innovation, drive it into agriculture, and become a food secure nation for the next so many years, and also be able to export our foods, and we shall attract the best prices. Kenya today exports coffee, we export tea, we export flowers, and their quality, if you've been to UK or somewhere, is one of the best in the world. We can turn maize into that, we can turn fruits, mangoes into that, and Kenya becomes food secure. Our farmers get the highest prices for their produce, and we become an economy that is dependent on itself. Such monies can be driven, the extra monies can be driven into climate resilience programs. It is possible for Kenya. We just need a leadership that is focused to ensure that such things happen, and it happens. Yeah, get the partnerships between the counties and the national government, and we go down there, and it happens.
That's it.
When the Turkwell was built, this is historical. So many people in the country were so skeptical about it. But the day Jaramogi visited that place and said, this is a wonderful project. I've only seen such in places like Europe or wherever I've gone. It became a national project. And you see, it has really helped us get the power that we do. So it's possible that even during Kenyatta's time, we just needed seriousness. During Moi's time, just need to be serious on a certain issue. The president today is a little serious when it comes to the climate issues. But if we can depoliticize that and ensure that we are doing projects that will really benefit the populations, the communities, especially those that are in climate-sensitive areas like the north and southeast, we can turn this country around and become food secure, become climate resilient, and we can even become a model of how a country can turn around its fortunes and become like a model of climate resilient nation. It's possible for us to do. And the good thing with our communities, I've visited several communities within the country, those that those who carry on carbon projects.
Yes.
The Kenyan communities are very resilient, by the way. You give them a project, they will really do it. Those local, rural community groups that really partake on some projects, they are very focused. They just need honest, deliberate, and allocations from the national and county government to ensure that such very fancy talks that we are having on TV here can be turned into reality. And those communities are able to do that. Even those who come from from the north, like Turkana,
yes,
we have fresh water there. It is just about get this right, and we do it, we give it money, and we do it. Yeah. It's just like the president decided we are going to have a housing levy, and you're being taxed on your payslip.
That's it.
Just make a decision that in the next year's financial allocation, we are going to have this project. There's a Galana Kulalu project in the southeast, and you realize that it has a lot of potential of turning this country into food secure. So if you can have several of those, although there's a lot of politics around it and some gray areas that the citizens are never informed fully, but if you can turn that area that was just merely some shrubs into such arable land, you can turn the north And we shall never need to import maize. We shall never need to import anything.
Yes.
We shall grow our onions and everything, and we shall be importing to other countries.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Good. Let's talk about another area that Kenya has been sort of blamed on, and I want us to touch on this one. Ooh, somebody tells me that we've run out of time. Wow. All right, but you got to respond to this.
The conversation is sweet.
Ooh, yes. I've been told we have 2 minutes. Wow. How is it possible that we only have 2 minutes for this? Anyway, but I quickly respond to this one, and then just take a minute to respond to this one. That we're also getting it wrong in terms of our agriculture. That we don't have smart seed systems and climate smart practices that Kenya needs to adopt, even from the finance that they're getting into the country under the climate financing. And this is what somebody told me yesterday, that I wish the president in his current drive would have come in with smart seed systems as opposed to affordable fertilizer. Do you agree? Just take a minute on that before we step out of the studio.
Yeah. Like subsidized fertilizer is a good thing.
Yes.
There are so many other programs that the way you are saying the seed smart.
Yes.
All those programs are good. If we need to become a food secure and a climate resilient nation, we must be able to make deliberate investments in having seeds that are smart. And I already mentioned those which are drought resistant.
Yes.
So that we can turn our areas that are dry, which is 80% of Kenya's landmass, into arable land.
That's it.
Kenya has the capacity and the ability to turn itself around on those two areas.
Yes.
And I repeat, it is just about being deliberate, the way the president himself normally said, being deliberate, and all those things are going to happen.
Pretty
and
much.
Most importantly, weed out corruption.
Yes.
Because even in climate financing, what we are experiencing at the moment is there are some elements of corruption where you find that a project that is more deserving does not get the needed support. The government needs to go down to communities, educate them, tell them this is how a project is done, and once you do, this is how you get your credits, and this is where you can trade your credits. It's just like the stock exchange for information.
That's it.
Once you have the credit, you can join the carbon credit market, as long as you have verified credits.
Pretty much.
Once you go to that exchange, you can sell it to any person within the country or even outside.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
All right, Dennis, as we clear, just take 15 seconds to reply to this. According to you, what are the realistic, measurable resilience targets that Kenya should set for 2026 and 2030? And I'm asking you about 2026 and 2030 because all that we're talking about here, by the way, is enshrined in the Vision 2030. Just 15 seconds.
Already the country, through our NDCs, we already have a commitment, like now the NDC 3 that was submitted in May, we already have a commitment to reduce carbon emissions by, I think, 35%.
That's it.
By 2035, I think.
Yes.
That's a good target. Now the target should come down to, we should end hunger in Kenya by also 2035. And ending hunger in Kenya requires deliberate investments, all things that we have discussed here.
Yes.
Seed smart, climate smart agriculture, ensuring that you put communities at a closer range, they get the capacity builded, and they will do marvelous for this country.
Pretty much.
So yeah, we are all set to go if only the national and the county governments get serious into investing into climate smart agriculture. Yeah.
Maybe when Dennis comes back, because I'll call him back again. By the way, this is just half of the conversation that was supposed to happen this morning. Maybe when he comes back, I should be asking him. You know, the Vision 2030 states that hunger and malnutrition should be ended completely by 2030. But you hear what Dennis is saying, maybe ended by 2035. Maybe when he comes back, I should be asking him, is that him saying that, well, anything under climate change in the Vision 2030 it won't be achieved? Maybe we should start like that next time when he walks into the studio. Take him back to the time that he joined us in the studio this morning. The likes of Farida who've sent in their questions this morning. Thank you very much for being a part and parcel of the conversation. Take us online at Lookup TV across all your social media platforms. Dennis, thank you very much for joining us this morning, man. That's it. I'll see you tomorrow for more conversations. Good morning and goodbye.